Hello, it's Daryl here with a quick preamble to let you know what's on today's show. We are going to round up all the other international action that happened in the past week or so that did not involve the US men's national team. I know we've focused really hard on the US national team for Honduras and for Panama, but lots of other stuff happened. We're going to get a good look at that. Today's show is sponsored by Fucci, makers of the soccer rebounder that we really have fun playing with, and you can get a discount on using the code TSS2017. The link is in the show notes. Also, towards the end of today's show, you will hear one round, 10 questions, an excerpt from the trivia night, the soccer trivia night that Taylor and I hosted at Penny Lane Pub here in Richmond, Virginia last week. That trivia night was sponsored by Guinness. You'll hear 10 general knowledge soccer questions and, importantly, 10 answers at the end of today's show. Okay, thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. Here's the show. Hello and welcome to the Thursday Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's always on international break. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Is that true? Because if so, does that mean I only have to work like twice every 3 months?
I guess so. I'm not entirely sure what that means.
I feel like you've committed yourself to something that you're not going to enjoy later on when you're just talking to an empty chair as I'm away on international duty.
I was thinking about how a lot of soccer fans complain about international break, but for me it's kind of my favourite because we get to focus intensely on like one or two games, like say the US national team game. Right. And it doesn't feel like a million things are happening at once. We can focus on that US draw against Panama, for example.
I think it's always nice, especially from an American perspective, because qualifying is the way it is, that it's two World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah.
I think if you're, say, an England fan where it's like kind of a not very important friendly against Germany and then a World Cup qualifier.
Tell that to Lucas Podolski.
Well, yeah. And then a World Cup qualifier against Lithuania. It doesn't quite have the same significance as, say, maybe like a title challenge or the race for fourth.
As I said to you, Lithuania are in the top 107 teams in the world.
Yeah, and you beat them by a mighty scoreline of 2-0.
But there was action in the international break, and we focused very much on the US against Honduras, US against Panama. I think we ended up doing like 6 shows total for those two games. So we thought we'd take this show to catch up on all the other things that happened over the international break.
Indeed.
Sound good? Maybe some England, maybe some Brazil.
Actually, yeah. Why don't we go ahead and start with that then? Because I do want to talk about England for a second, but I wanted to pick your brain about one England player in particular, and it's Ross Barkley. Because I know that you have some love for Ross Barkley. At least you did in the past. That he was one that I think you had. That was one of your first hype trains. You've had many different hype trains at many different points.
I was on the Ross Barkley hype train early. I very much bought into the new Gaza type hype, and I was really excited. I mean, that's what people were saying. I think Roberto Martinez may have contributed to that a little bit.
Yeah. And so, first of all, you said I was on the hype train. Does that mean that you have sold your stakes?
So I was very excited about the potential of Ross Barkley and what he was going to do, and maybe England having this creative player going forward. And then as he's kind of stuttered a little bit internationally, I kind of just thought, okay, I can wait. I can just wait and see what happens in the future. Not least because other players have come through in the meantime, like, say, Raheem Sterling, and then Adam Lallana has come to the fore, and Dele Alli, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I found other hype trains to buy
you have
tickets
many
for.
people to love? That's what you're basically saying? Okay, I gotcha. And even to the extent that we had a question from Todd Ito, who's we read his scouting report yesterday. He was asking if, basically, if you were starting a team, would you pick Ross Barkley or Christian Pulisic? And to me, that's not really a question. I think it's got to be Christian Pulisic, right?
Yeah, especially because Barkley's a few years older than Pulisic at this point, and then Pulisic is performing for Dortmund and for the United States. He's already doing it. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Ross Barkley, 0 minutes in his last 7 call-ups, hasn't started a game for England in over a year, left out by both Allardyce, and wasn't used at all by Roy Hodgson in the 2016 Euros. So my question is, is it a case that you think the coaches don't know how to utilize him, or is it that he just kind of doesn't fit, or he's not better at any one position than any of the other people in the squad?
I think it's the Klinsmann phrase, others are ahead of him.
Really?
Right? Because Dele Alli is in his spot right now, so Ross Barkley's not taking that spot. And I understand it. I haven't seen that much of Everton this year, but apparently he's really sort of clicked. Koeman has set the bar high for him. He's making him do a lot more disciplined things that he wasn't in the past, and he's becoming much more effective. So I still think he'll be a useful player in the future for England, but he's not going to be the sort of new Gaza that I was all excited about.
Well, do you think there's any player on that England squad that has the potential to be a new Gaza, or do you think it's just overall?
There'll never be another.
But overall, do you think it's a more or less likable England team than it was, say, 6-8 months ago?
Much more. It's a more humble England team. Did you hear the story about Gareth Southgate showing the players video of England failures of the past before the Germany game, right? Including Southgate's own penalty miss at Euro 96, which knocked England out. And I feel like it's... I talked about Allardyce as being more pragmatic in terms of like, we'll get balls in the box and we'll make sure this happens. Southgate seems to be a more like, accept the reality of England aren't good and let's try and change that instead of keep telling ourselves how good we are and see if that's enough to go deep in a tournament, which turns out for 20 years, it's not.
So maybe a happier weekend for you then, as an England fan? Maybe,
but before we get to talking about England, I want to talk about the big news today, the big international news that broke not long before we hit record. FIFA's, it's not the FIFA Council, right? It's the FIFA Bureau. The Bureau of the Council. It's the most bureaucratic name you can possibly think of. They've announced for the 48-team World Cup 2026, they've announced which confederations are getting how many berths. You want to hear them?
I've got them. If you want me to, you want to do them or you want me to do them?
You tell me.
So you've got UEFA with 16 teams, Africa have 9, Asia 8, CONMEBOL 6, CONCACAF 6, Oceania 1. So that's 46 spots. You have 2 left over, obviously, and the way that works is I guess there's a proposal to have a 6-team playoff.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing about all this, right?
Yeah, and that would be, so I guess the way it would work, the host nation, whatever federation they're from, that spot is automatically deducted. So say if this were to be enacted now with Russia, instead of 16, UEFA would get 15 spots plus Russia. So then those final 6 playoff spots would be the 5 non-UEFA federations and then the federation of the host country.
And in this case, that would be UEFA.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
But the weird thing is, if the tournament isn't hosted by UEFA, UEFA wouldn't get a team in that playoff.
Right.
Which is really weird, right? This is definitely sort of a move away from the old world of giving UEFA all the spots to trying to spread these out a bit more.
Right. And then within that playoff, it would basically be the top 2 seeded teams would get like first round byes. The remaining 4 would play each other. The winner of those would then play the other seeds. And then you'd have 2 go through eventually.
So it's kind of like March Madness.
In a very small form. It's like if the NIT allowed you to get into March Madness. Maybe something like that, yeah.
Okay, so before we talk about the playoff element, which is a whole like new tournament that will be in the host country, which is really odd, I want to talk about the increase in World Cup berths, right? So I wrote down sort of who's gone from what in the 32 to what they get in the 48, okay? So guaranteed right now, UEFA has 13, actually 14 usually for a World Cup. In the new 48-team tournament, they'll have guaranteed 16. CONMEBOL goes from, CONMEBOL 4.5 goes to 6. Asia goes from 4.5 to 8, so that's the biggest jump so far. CONCACAF, our hometown, goes from 3.5 to 6. Africa goes from 5 to 9. And I want to argue the biggest winners here, Oceania goes from 0.5, like so that's like a playoff only, to 1.
Right.
So Oceania is the only place that gets double the playoff spots.
Yeah, sort
but
of.
also only an
in a manner of
extra half.
speaking,
Proportionally, Oceania gets a whole extra, like 100% more.
Which is strange because, like, if that were instituted now, like, congratulations, New Zealand, you're in.
Yeah, they'd be in already.
It'd be over. Whereas right now they have that half a spot, so they have to have the playoff.
So, the big winner, I want to say Africa and Asia.
Yep.
And I think the reason I tweeted this out earlier, I like this because I think it's time that we stopped sort of UEFA and CONMEBOL, even though they are the better teams, stopped hogging all the spots.
I go back and forth because I think, again, if the goal is to get more teams in there that wouldn't otherwise be there, I think Africa in particular, their World Cup qualifying is brutal. And you're going to have, I think it's, I could be wrong, but I believe I'm correct in saying that in one group, in the final round of qualifying, you have both Nigeria and reigning African Cup of Nations champions Cameroon. One of those teams won't be going to the World Cup because only the top team in each group advances.
That's the problem with not having enough spots. Someone really good always misses out. I remember a stretch when Egypt won the Africa Cup of Nations like 3 years in a row. I think it was 2008, 2010, 2012, or maybe 1 year off with that, but didn't make the World Cup during that time.
Right.
So you get the best team in the continent not going.
Yeah, and we've talked about
this will solve that problem, I think.
We've talked about it many times when Bob Bradley was the coach of Egypt, that they breezed through their group. I think they didn't lose a game. Then they have to have a playoff against Ghana, who are very good, if you didn't know, and it doesn't go their way, and they're knocked out, basically having played years of qualifying.
Yeah.
They end up having to play a home and away series, and that's it.
You have one bad hour and a half against Ghana,
Yep.
and your whole World Cup is over. Yeah.
Right. So I think that makes me very happy that there's going to be more African countries in there. That said, if you look at the teams that like have a decent chance of missing out right now, that this doesn't necessarily rectify, it's UEFA that you're going to still be missing some of the bigger teams.
Oh, yeah? Oh, like the Netherlands, maybe? We'll talk about later.
Yeah. I mean, there's always, not always there's big teams, but there's usually like a couple teams that probably could excite. And if you look at the expanded Euros, you did have some of those teams that otherwise wouldn't have been there going deep in the tournament. Right now,
You also didn't have the Netherlands.
You also didn't have the Netherlands, yeah. More on that later on. But, like, for example, right now, Wales on the outside looking in.
Uh-huh.
I would be sad to have a World Cup and not have Wales there because they were so much fun to watch because they
Iceland?
have so many different moments.
Iceland at the Euros?
I think
they brought me mostly sorrow, but
I think they're second right now, or they're near the top enough of the table that they still are in with a chance.
Okay.
So, I mean, but yeah, the point being that I understand why UEFA didn't get a lot more berths, but by the
proportionally from 14 to 16 is easily the weakest percentage
Yeah.
increase of any federation.
Yeah, and so I mean, I get why that would be the case, and why it's better to have other countries sending more teams. But I'll say this: like, if you look at CONMEBOL, for example, as we mentioned, I mean, there are 10 teams in CONMEBOL. It reminds me of the first MLS Cup in 1996 when both conferences sent all but one team to the playoffs.
Right.
Like, so you just couldn't have been like, if you were very bad, you missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
And here, I mean, there are 10 teams, 6 are going. Like, that to me, it's if you have more teams going than you have in your more than half of the teams that are going than are in your federation.
If you had more teams going than were in your federation,
it'd be a little strange.
You'd be doing really well.
Yeah. So like
Brazil B could go.
That's where I kind of am like a little bit. It's up in the air, basically, because the sixth team now is probably Ecuador, I think. And so there's the question of, like, would you rather have Ecuador or Iceland or Wales or Netherlands? Like, it's a tough thing to juggle.
But I think that's looking at it through the lens of, like, we want the best teams there. Whereas I still, at least the maybe just my heart rather than my head, thinks I just like the idea of there being more variety of countries, like more of the globe being represented at the World Cup. Which is why it was always harsh for Oceania to get half a spot, because that means then that area can get no teams if New Zealand lose the playoff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I love guaranteeing them a spot.
I think the other thing that maybe throws me a little bit about it is that it also feels like some of this is designed to force federations to like look back on the way they've gone about doing qualification and changing it a little bit. Because again, if you've got 9 teams coming out of Africa? Is that what you said? Yeah, 9. He looks at his sheet in front of him as opposed to asking you. Like, that is going to force you to change things around a little bit because now the current system doesn't make as much sense. Same thing I would say with CONCACAF. If you've got 6 teams automatically going, you're probably not going to do the Hex anymore.
The Hex would just be teams meet and high five and talk about their plans for the World Cup.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to change the way you go about doing qualification, and it makes it, I would say, it's still obviously going to be very stressful because it's going to be a lot of teams competing for a limited number of spots, but it certainly isn't nearly as competitive as UEFA and what they have to go through. And I think that's probably not going to change. And so you're still going to have these, you can get in a bad group. Again, like right now, is it Italy and Spain are in the same qualification group? Like that's rough for anybody else that's in there.
I'm going to offer you a semi-conspiratorial, which actually just might be more fact-based than anything, is the reason that most of these spots have gone to...
Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously.
They're not as like, I want to say like the more recently formed federations, I guess, especially not UEFA and CONMEBOL, not the big teams, is that was part of the Infantino promise. That's how you get votes, right? You say to all the African countries and the Asian countries, hey, I'll put more spots at the World Cup for your federation.
And CONCACAF as well.
Yeah, and then you get more votes, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty much how this panned out.
We've done the math.
So is this democracy in action or is this corruption?
I would say it's democracy in action. I'm stealing that one from The Daily Show.
In action is all one word.
Yes, exactly. I mean,
but it's not because things happened, right? Something has actually happened.
Yeah. More so pointing out that it's like, yes, I guess it's democracy because people are getting what they voted for, but it's also sort of it's if you didn't have a bicameral legislature, if it was just the masses getting what they want.
Yeah.
Not always the best thing.
And then one candidate runs on a platform of more money for everybody. I'm going to raise everybody's wages.
Is that not what Infantino ran on?
And then you get elected and you give everybody more.
I mean, didn't he actually run? Maybe it was I can't remember
on a bigger World Cup. Yeah,
well, it was that, but it was either him or Blatter ran on a. We're going to give $5 million to every federation. Like that was part of the campaign, and the idea there being that we're a nonprofit, we have this money coming in, we can reinvest. But by the same token, if a candidate running for president said, "Hey, I'm going to give every American $500 if they vote for me," like he's going to do all right.
Which would actually end up kind of cheap. It would be cheaper than running the whole campaign.
Yeah.
It would, right? I'm going to write that idea down for future political campaigns for Darrell and Taylor.
Yeah, I think you just have to prove that you have the resources.
I see.
Yeah, and we're not trying to divulge the TSS accounts, but I'm not sure we have enough to cover $500 for 300 million people.
We're on the way.
400 million people now. I'm not sure where we are. Yeah.
Okay, so the other element of this is, like you said, there are 2 spots left over, and then you're going to have this 6-team tournament in the host country. The November before the tournament. And the way that would work is eventually you get 2 winners from that that would qualify for the World Cup. I'm thinking this will be kind of cool. Like, as a spectacle, it'll be exciting. It'll be like the Club World Cup, but with something to play for. And with 2 winners. And it'll be a good test of the venues, 7 months before the World Cup takes place. I could see this working.
I could see it working. I could see it also being a little bit like the Club World Cup in that sense, where, so say, again, for sake of argument, if we're doing it right now with 2018 World Cup, Russia the host nation, so then I'm correct in saying that then that playoff spot would go to UEFA, right?
Yes, normally it wouldn't, but this time it would go to UEFA.
So then say, like, one of the last teams, say one of the teams in that playoff was the Netherlands, and then say one of the teams from South America was Ecuador, again, to go back to them. I feel like I would back them over El Salvador and who else could be coming out, like Qatar or something like that.
Well, for the US, it'd be more like maybe Trinidad. Sorry, for the CONCACAF, it'd be more like Trinidad or Canada.
Not right now. Trinidad is in.
Oh, if
because it's 6 and you got the hex. So it would be, whoever just missed out on the hex, essentially.
Jamaica
could be. Canada could be. Yeah.
So you're saying there'll still be a mismatch when you get to tournament time?
I feel like there would be, but again, that's part of the majesty of the World Cup. You get these teams in there, you never know what's going to happen come elimination rounds.
And it'll be a weird thing where you almost played in the World Cup. You could say, like, I played in that country in those stadiums 7 months before the actual thing.
And really, I think
I almost touched it.
And I really think, but even then, like, and I actually hadn't thought about that until you just mentioned that. But that is true. That, okay, for example, say Canada in the CONCACAF Federation, or I'm trying to think who else, like, maybe always is right there. Maybe Haiti is another one. They're never going to go to the World Cup right now with the way things are.
Yeah.
But if you change this, they might not finish in the top 6, but that half a spot is they are going to the place where the World Cup is being held with a chance of qualifying for the actual tournament.
How much of a spot? It's actually a third of a spot, isn't it? If it's 6 teams, one from each federation, say, and it's 1 spot for grabs, it's a third of a spot extra for everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, if that's 6 1/3 spots for CONCACAF, that opens it up way more than it would have otherwise. In fact, that point you just made makes me like the playoff format a lot more, because that is the part that I think really, truly does actually allow for teams that otherwise would never be there.
Okay, before we get too positive then, is there a nefarious element to this? Like, is it, for example, a bit of a money grab? Because then you'll be selling the rights and you'll be selling sponsorship around that sort of World Cup playing tournament?
This definitely, to steal a phrase from, I think, your country, specifically Shaun of the Dead, is where I first heard this. It has a little bit of
You've got red on you?
There's that, yeah. I mean, you will if you go into some tackles against some people in the World Cup. It was we'll do it on the night. And it feels a little bit like, we'll figure it out as it goes. And that's kind of how this continues to feel. Is like, why don't we do this? How about we try that? We'll do 3 teams in this group. We'll add a 16 playoff. It kind of continuously feels like things are being shuffled around to have them fit the best they can.
The slightly worrying thing here, I know we've got other stuff to get to, but the slightly worrying thing is that there's a chance that this tournament, 2026, is hosted in the United States. Maybe like a joint bid with Canada and Mexico. Maybe. We're not quite sure yet. But if this is a bit messy, there's then a chance that the US gets some of the blame for the disorganization.
Well, except the confusing part here is that we also know that in 2026, FIFA is taking over the planning. That they're not going to allow independent planning of the tournaments. It will be all FIFA personnel. It really makes me wonder when, I'm saying this like 80% joking. I was going to say 50, 80% joking. It does feel like at some point FIFA are just going to buy a country, right? Like I mean, what's stopping them from buying, I don't know.
Switzerland?
Well, no, but
somewhere less expensive.
Someone that has land to sell, basically. And they're like, what's stopping them from buying 100 acres or 300 acres somewhere?
So they could approach Trinidad and Tobago and be, hey, how much for Tobago?
Yeah, and then you build a bunch of stadia there, you put a bunch of facilities there, and suddenly it's like FIFA land, and you have every World Cup there, and everyone goes there, and they're in charge of everything.
This is a weird idea, but I could kind of see it.
I mean, you have every major tournament there. So you have U20 World Cup, you have the Women's World Cup, you have the Women's U20 World Cup, you have the World Cup, you have everybody coming there kind of all the time. Pays for itself. That's all I'm saying, FIFA.
Would be a successful country.
I'll take my check whenever you want to send it to me.
There would be uproar.
Oh, absolutely. But it starts to feel that way when suddenly it's like more teams are coming. We control everything that's happening. We already control like who sponsors and what the rates are going to be.
Yeah.
It just feels a little bit like increasingly FIFA are getting more and more control while making things bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. So basically, all hail our FIFA overlords, future rulers of the planet.
I voted for Kronos.
Don't blame me, it's a two-party system.
Moving on to the football action. So the other international friendly action. Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned it earlier. I want to start with the Netherlands.
I'm still so excited about FIFAville. I'm sorry, I can't get over it. FIFA World, FIFA Land, it's tough.
Well, can we instead talk about Netherlands losing 2-0 to Bulgaria and Danny Blind getting fired? Mm-hmm. There's a real chance that the Netherlands are going to miss out on World Cup 2018 after missing out on Euro 2016. It's a bit of a crisis.
It's definitely a bit of a crisis. So currently, the way the table sits in their group, France on top, then Sweden, then Bulgaria, then the Netherlands. Netherlands on 7 points, the ones in front of them, 9, 10, and 13 points. Mm-hmm. So at this, it is worth noting that we're only halfway through. So there's 5 games to be played.
I'd say this is more of a glasses half empty kind of situation.
Yes, and I think
half empty of points.
And especially because the way it always works is that basically because you have 2 groups now where they only have 5 teams instead of 6. Is that right in European qualifying?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Regardless, if you have 1, it still means that the way you balance it out is to get like the best second place teams competing. You drop the results against the lowest.
Oh yeah, they've
team.
Always done that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So. I mean, basically, the Netherlands have 3 of their 7 points have come against Luxembourg. They still have a game against Luxembourg to go, but those points don't necessarily matter because they're going to drop those in the end. Right. So even then, it's even more of a dire situation than it was before.
Oh, well, can we talk about 17-year-old Matthias de Ligt?
We can, but can I interject to say this was like this incident that we're about to talk about made me appreciate Bruce Arena. Because I know that people have been frustrated with some of his selections and how he's not giving young people a chance. This, I would argue, is why you don't. When you're in crisis, you don't give youngsters a chance and hope that it's going to work out.
So for those who haven't seen this, Matthias de Ligt is 17 years old, is playing for the Ajax first team. I think he's only played like 6 games or so.
Yeah, he's not played many.
But there have been some great highlights of like wonderfully timed side tackles where when he gets up with the ball and plays it at the back. Really impressive. Danny Blind started him at centre-back for the Netherlands in a World Cup qualifier against Bulgaria.
Right.
They lose 2-0, and both goals are somewhat his fault. The first goal is almost entirely de Ligt's fault. Yeah. I don't say this with any glee, because I think it was a rough situation to put a 17-year-old in. It's one of those things. Didn't John Adams ask us about this? Like, what's a good position for a young player? Centre-back is hard. Yep. Centre-back is really, really hard. That's why most young centre-backs will make their debut at like right-back or left-back, where you can get away with a mistake.
And from everything that I read and heard about this game, even like Dutch fans were sort of kind of hoping that this would fail because I think a lot of people were frustrated when Danny Blind was appointed in the first place and are very much disappointed with the way he's gone about selecting players. Yep. The key idea here being like, for example, Ron Vlaar, who started in the World Cup for them. Yeah. He was eligible, not called in. And
he's such like a Bruce Arena player, right?
That's
like
what I mean. That's exactly what I mean.
Ready to just bash it away. Not too subtle, but gets it done.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I understand why this 17-year-old is super exciting and has a lot of upside, but for purposes of making the tournament, you want to play the guy who can get you there because you don't want the youngster who can come in and miss a header, run into his goalkeeper, fail to clear another header, and then lose his man.
And yes, can we just focus on the first goal? Because I feel like that's the sort of the worst defense. It's just like a long ball that comes in. De Ligt is with, I think their name is Deleuve, the number 9 for Bulgaria, and De Ligt just sort of watches the ball come down as if it looks like he's planning to maybe just take it on his foot and turn, like he's planning something fancy, forgets to just jump and head it. So Deleuve just takes it and smashes it past the keeper.
Yep. And part of that is because the Bulgarian striker, who I'm not even going to attempt, he's played on side, and so then it's the latest having to track the ball but also track the man. He can't just kind of square up and head that ball clean. He has to. Essentially, it reminded me of what Graham Zusi did twice against Panama, where he kind of lost the man, was tracking the ball, ran into the man. Yeah. In this situation, he lost the ball, got back into the right position, but then lost the ball again and instead ran into his goalkeeper, fell over, ball goes into the net.
And that really, it doesn't mean that he's a terrible player. It just means he's an inexperienced player. Yeah. And you make this mistake at international level, you get punished, your team loses, your manager gets fired.
Yes.
Right? So in the hot seat right now, Frank Grimm
Yep.
has taken over from Danny Blind in a sort of caretaker type
I would say
basis.
very caretaker.
But long term, it doesn't seem like they know exactly who it's going to be.
Not at all,
Right?
Mm-mm. And I mean, and even before this, the other numbers that I thought were particularly compelling were Danny Blint in his time there, 17 games in charge, 47 different players used, no major wins. It was a lot of like the lower tier, the Luxembourgs of the world, if you will, the Lithuanias as well. So it does feel like because Danny Blint is gone, you had Louis van Gaal previously, you had Gus Hiddink previously. Louis van Gaal may be back in the rumor a little bit.
I saw a story that he was coming in a senior advisory role. That doesn't mean managing the team, right? That just means sort of overseeing things. And that always says that they don't quite know what's going on.
Right. And so instead you've got, who are the names that we've seen? I've
seen Eric Ten Hag, young sort of up-and-comer.
But he was the one who was like Pep Guardiola's assistant. He was the reserve team coach at Bayern Munich. I think he only has like 2 years of actual senior coaching experience.
With Utrecht right now.
Then you've got Frank de Boer, who was a very sexy candidate when he was with Ajax. I think a lot of clubs were looking at him. I think Tottenham were looking at him, but then he goes to Inter. That flamed out in a matter of months. Then the obvious candidate, if you want to go with a Dutch coach with a reputation, would be Ronald Koeman.
The aforementioned Ronald Koeman. He got the best out of Ross Barkley.
And
one-time switch for Ross Barkley.
And I was really, and I was really surprised by this because I felt like there was no chance. And then I kept hearing pundits say like, it's a job he's always wanted. He's very excited about the possibility. He wanted it. He publicly campaigned for it. And then Louis van Gaal was given the job. And I was really shocked by this. Started to come around to the idea that maybe he was going to get it, and then I realized everyone who was saying that was Dutch. And I think if you're of course you're going to be like, oh, it's the best job ever. Whereas Ronald Koeman, I believe, is one of the candidates who's linked with Barcelona. Now I don't think he's going to be the one to get that.
Yeah.
But it still is sort of like between if you're linked with them, if you're doing well at Everton, if you're probably going to get another big money move. I don't know if you go to a Dutch team that is, I would argue, probably not going to make the World Cup.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was going to say it's a big shout, but it kind of feels that way right now.
I mean, right now, yeah.
Someone comes in and pulls this off, they're a hero. But it seems like kind of a poison chalice. It seems like you're going down with this ship if you take this job.
And so
to mix my metaphors.
Yeah, I like it. And so the two silver linings I've heard.
You'll sink drinking poison from a chalice at the same time.
Nicely done. The two silver linings I've heard, the first one was on Football Weekly. It was Mikkel Jungsberg, I believe is the Dutch journalist, who was saying the last time the Dutch failed to qualify for two major tournaments in a row, I think they won the next one. So there's that. They won the Euros.
So it's before Euro 88.
Yeah,
that's what they won.
Yeah. And then the other one that I think we both read, I think it was, again, an interview with Mikkel Jungsberg, this one written down, that essentially...
Jungsma, I've got.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
That is definitely it, because you have it written down, and I'm going from memory, so you win. The interesting point there was that basically the downturns that the German and Belgian federations had that forced them to change and bring them to where they are now, the Dutch never really had that. And so he was saying maybe that's what this is now.
That makes sense, yeah. But that also means that, it takes a good 10 years or so for it to turn around. So if you're a Dutch football fan, it means you've got some waiting to do. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. The sort of golden era of Dutch football may be on the way out. And you can see that in the coaches, right? The way that it used to be, it seemed like every team in the world had a Dutch coach. Like Hiddink and Advocaat and all these guys were all over the world. And now they're struggling to decide who their own coach should be because that generation has moved on.
And the other thing that I found particularly interesting was this idea that essentially the Dutch were, consistently for decades the innovators, the ones who were trying to do things, figuring things out. And essentially, the argument I heard was like people caught up to them and improved upon their techniques, and then the Dutch became practical. And that's why you remember all the criticism about that.
That's why you get Najee de Jong foot to the chest.
Exactly, because it's like a much more like, look, we can't do that anymore. We got to play this way. It's going to be practical. It's going to be boring, but we're going to make the World Cup final.
Van Bommel, you're in.
Louis van Gaal. It's like, I don't have the personnel I need, so we're going to do this very counterattacking system, which a lot of people were frustrated by. And it seems like because of that, the Dutch have sort of been like, what's it called? Like papering over the cracks for a while. Now those cracks are getting to the point where maybe they can't be papered over anymore.
Well, to use a Dutch analogy, it would be sticking your fingers in the dike.
Oh, of course. What
Come
is
on.
wrong with me?
Come on.
I should know better. I'm sorry. Putting your clogs in the windmill. Is that one? Does that work?
If it stops the windmill, I guess. If you're trying to stop the windmill, then yes. Okay, should we move on to a national team who's doing considerably better?
Sure.
Not England. Brazil.
That would be the one.
So Brazil's results this past round were they beat Uruguay away 4-1.
Unreal.
They beat Paraguay at home 3-0. They became the first team to qualify for the World Cup, if you don't count Russia, who are, of course, hosting. Brazil are going to the World Cup already.
And doing so in impressive fashion.
Yes.
And it's been a lot of, I'm going to say, excising demons because if you look at what's happened to them in this qualifying campaign, you had, is it Chiche? Is that how we're going to pronounce it?
Yes,
I asked our Brazilian friends this past weekend, and they told me how to pronounce it, but then I got lost trying to properly pronounce obrigado, or however you say thank you in Portuguese. I think I hit the O too hard, is what I was told. But I think it's Chiche. And since he's come in, he, again, it basically is what the Dutch need. Maybe they should hire him, because he brought about this team that was really not doing very well in qualification. There was a lot of infighting.
Copa America was a disaster.
Yeah, Neymar kind of hated him. Copa America was a disaster. That would be Dunga. Dunga now gone. In comes Chiche, and things are very good for Brazil.
Oh, and just if you get the chance, just go watch these goals because they're all really, really good. I think the one that got everybody's eye, when we were doing our soccer trivia night, the one that got everybody's eye was Neymar's lob.
Goodness.
I had a conversation about this goal over breakfast this morning. Someone called it a teardrop.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which I'd never heard before, but it's perfect for this because it's even like more, there's more height and then it comes quickly back down than a regular lob, right?
Yep.
So teardrop I think works.
I would also say it's a statistics professor's nightmare.
What's that?
Because you want, like, I feel like if you want your statistics to be logical, they should be like in a logical line,
curve.
Up and down, smooth curve, whatever. You don't want like normal, huge spike, and then back down.
So if you get a chance to look at this goal, the other thing to look at, you can be mesmerised by the lob. Check out Neymar's thigh work.
Yep.
Check out the thighs on Neymar. That first touch he takes with his thigh to take him away from Coates, I believe is the defender, is what absolutely leaves him behind, right? Then he's one-on-one with Silva, the Uruguayan keeper, and it really looks like he's thinking about, maybe I'll go left side, maybe I'll go right side. Silva's out, the angle is narrow. No problem for Neymar because he can roll a teardrop over your head.
Oh, boy. He is very good. I don't know if people have decided on that yet, but I'm going to go ahead and say officially Neymar, pretty good at soccer. But I also wanted to...
Almost as good as Paulinho.
Yeah, right? He had two, like...
He had a hat-trick against Uruguay and 2 assists against Paraguay.
But what would we call those assists? We have names for them, but it's that kind of like reverse back heel instep sort of situation.
Yeah, I'd say reverse pass because it's like he's playing it in the opposite direction to the one he's facing. I think with the outside of his foot both times, right? So for Coutinho, for the first goal against Paraguay, and for Marcelo, which is another beautiful goal where Marcelo does sort of a chipped version of Neymar's goal.
Yeah, and I think... like basically Brazil are the opposite of what we were saying about the Netherlands, which is that this, from everything I've read, everything I've heard, is Brazil kind of returning to that old Brazil of it's free flowing. It's was it Chile that they did it against? There's that famous goal from like 98 or 2000 thereabouts when it's like pass, and then they score a goal and it ends up being a tap in, but like everyone on the team touches it. It's
show me after we record.
They said it to it was one of the Nike commercials. It's like them messing around in the locker room when everyone's passing the ball back and forth while they get ready, and then they continue it out onto the field. It's that very like samba Brazil. That's what this team reminds me of. It's a lot of those flicks and tricks, but everybody's kind of on the same page and knows when to run and when to get off each other and step off and check two, and it's pretty amazing.
And it seems that the team is now settled, right? From what I've seen, Chiche is picking Neymar on the left, which is perfect. Coutinho on the right, that's already incredible. These 2 games, it was Firmino as like the number 9. I think when Gabriel Jesus is fit, it's also him. I remember even in the Copa, we were saying, who could play centre forward for this team? We don't know who it's going to be. And now I think they've kind of got the answers.
I think they have, to the extent that if you look at, if you'll permit me to do some stats for you for a second, the couple of things that speak volumes to me, their goal difference. Do you have any idea? I'll tell you this. The next closest positive goal difference to them would be Uruguay, currently in 3rd place with +9. Brazil?
+20.
Even higher, +25.
+25.
Yes. 35 goals for, 10 against. The key stat even there would be that since Chiche took over, they have conceded 2 goals. 2 goals in the last 8 games. Not bad for a Brazil team.
So it's official. Brazil are back.
Yes, I think so.
Right. Okay, we talked a little earlier about England. Jermaine Defoe is back.
Yes, he is.
So one of my big stories from this week is that Jermaine Defoe started for England and scored against Lithuania. Yeah.
Yep, that's what happens when you're a vegan.
Ask me anything.
Why does being a vegan allow you to score for England?
I think because you're not putting any bad things in your body.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, so I mean, that was like one of the kind of overarching stories I saw was this whole idea of him being vegan. I wonder if that's just because it's still... Do you think diet is still a thing that's sort of not fully understood or looked down upon a little bit in the British press?
Well, I would say, okay, so I'm vegetarian. It is a lot easier to find vegetarian food here in the US than it is in England.
But I mean,
let's put it that way.
But like I know we've talked about this before, and I know it is like a couple decades ago at this point. But there was the idea of like, what? Like you're not letting us drink anymore? We can't have pizza. We're not allowed to drink beer, or we have to eat vegetables all of a sudden. It felt like it was this very like weird reaction to that, and it was just sort of like, why are you bringing these foreign ideas?
Would you remember the stuff when Pep banned pizza at Manchester City? There's a big reaction of like, what?
Yeah,
Can't do that.
So I like the way it was covered as though it was this like strange novelty, and maybe it still is, but maybe it's just like the circles that we run in.
I think it's the British press just looking for a story.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
But how was it to see Mr. Jermaine back?
It kind of made me think what could have been for the last few years, because he's never really been an England regular, right? There's always been like Michael Owen ahead of him, or Wayne Rooney ahead of him. Like he's always been like, if everybody else is injured, then maybe we'll play Jermaine Defoe. And when you think of what a consistent goal scorer he's been, it could have been worth just sticking with him as your main goal scorer for like 10 years and letting him bang goals in. Right?
Yeah.
It was a classic goal scorer's goal. It was that thing of where you're shaped as if you're striking it one way, but at the last minute you open up, put it in the corner. You know what I mean? It's a classic, proper Jermaine Defoe goal.
Between that goal and the Jamie Vardy goal, which one were you happier about?
I was actually more happy about the Jamie Vardy goal because it's against Lithuania. I think they put like 9 or 10 players behind the ball. The clip I looked at...
12, actually. Illegally, they put 12 behind the ball.
The Vardy goal, they had 8 behind the ball, really, and 7 were in their own area. Normally, England really, really struggle, right? They can't make any space in that situation.
I can't think of a recent result in which that might have happened.
Game. Yeah. I heard Goalmouth this morning. Instead, you see Vardy sort of gesturing where he wants the ball to be played by Kyle Walker. Then he moves into that space, opens up some space. Lallana steps into that space, receives the ball, one time plays it. And you notice Vardy had done like the check away thing to lose his marker. So even in this like really crammed box with loads of players in it, England players managed to make some space and score a goal. That got me excited.
And I would say even the Vardy, that check away moment is incredibly important because now he is kept onside by the defender on the far side, but I'm not sure he knows that. I'm not sure he knows that defender is there.
That defender definitely doesn't know it.
Yeah, but if that defender weren't there, because Vardy does the check away and then comes back, he loses his marker by a good 4 or 5 yards, and his marker runs towards the goal, or towards the direction of the goal, that is, which puts him very much onside. So it's a very crafty run in terms of he creates space for himself, but he also makes sure that in creating that space, he's still in an onside position, but behind the majority of the defence.
All right. Final thing on Jermaine Defoe. I don't know if everybody saw this, but he came out with his buddy, Bradley Lowry, young kid with a neuroblastoma, which I think is like a very serious form of cancer, and they've become really like tight buddies. So Defoe got to walk out, or Bradley Lowry got to walk out with Defoe. Joe Hart was captain. He made sure they went first. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment at Wembley.
It was, and it was especially important that I think he be with Jermaine Defoe because it sounded like maybe it was a little bit too loud for him, so he had his ears covered the whole way. Looked a little bit terrified. I'm sure having your footballing idol and friend with you maybe made that a little bit easier to deal with.
How great for the... So this kid is a Sunderland fan, right? This is why like he loves Jermaine Defoe. The chances of Defoe getting an England recall and scoring were not great. So it's wonderful for this kid to be able to see this.
And I'd say wonderful for Jermaine Defoe. And Gareth Southgate, really. Because he has sort of, I mean, he really was that, like, sure, you'll do. Why not?
Yeah, you're here.
And it seems like he's doing a good job with England. It seems like that's not even me being passive.
We talked earlier about the humility of, like, accepting that maybe we're not the best anymore and maybe we should try some things.
Yeah, it does feel like if you are the, like, last choice to be there, like, it's like, he's gone. Sure, why not you? It's tough to then be like, we're the best team in the world when the job defaulted to me. And so to take that new approach of like, hey, we're just going to try to make things happen. We know who we are. We know our limitations. Let's go out there and get a result. And if we do, I'll be very happy and I won't have that sad, dour look on my face that managers of the past have had.
So 2 things I'll say about England now. Haven't conceded a goal in World Cup qualifying. I think they're the last nation to do that, in UEFA at least. But that's nothing to get too excited about because England qualification always goes well. It's the tournaments that are the main problem, right? So Gareth Southgate, in the friendly away to Germany in Dortmund, was working on some stuff.
I think that.
England faced Germany in a Chelsea-style 3-4-3. Very, very exciting. Not quite confident enough to take it into a proper game against Lithuania, World Cup qualifier, but for England to try 3 at the back is a whole new world.
But see, again, that's the practicality that you need. It's like because even you could make the argument, like, I mean, it's a friendly, but it's against Germany. It's a World Cup qualifier, but it's against Lithuania.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, we could maybe go with what we're used to against Germany so we can get that result because that's like the bigger headline. We can experiment against Lithuania. But I think it's practical of Gareth Southgate to experiment in the friendly, even if it's against a team like Germany, and then do the practical approach in the World Cup qualifier when you know you need to get those points.
Fair, yeah, I agree with that. And while we're talking about it, maybe a salute to Lukas Podolski. He scored a great goal. Germany beat England 1-0. Great goal by Podolski in what was essentially his international testimonial, like unofficial, but it was like his retirement, international retirement game, right?
And was subbed out. I mentioned this on the Goalmouth when I did it. Subbed out to the soundtrack from Gladiator. That should be just a FIFA law. In FIFA land, in FIFA world, that will be the thing. Every substitution, you play the Gladiator soundtrack. Because that is the most like heroic, like, yes, way to come off. And for the the player subbing on to come on. If you're running on to that score, you're ready to go. If it was good enough for Maximus, it's good enough for whomever.
All right, a player that didn't have such a great international break, Lionel Messi.
Yep.
Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
Things are not going well for Messi or for Argentina. We've hinted at this earlier, but actually I don't know the details on this story so much. I do know that Messi was given a 4-game suspension.
Right.
What happened?
So against Chile, he was very displeased with the assistant referee at the end of the game.
Okay.
I didn't see the game. I don't necessarily know why. I don't know if it was he was ruled offside or he missed a call, whatever the case may be. Lionel Messi, very angry, and I guess got in his face, had some words with him. I'm going to say a number of different curse words. The referee did not include it in his match report. He didn't include it in his incident report. But Chile found out about it, I guess, submitted the video of it to FIFA or maybe to CONMEBOL, who then submitted it to FIFA. Either way, Messi's suspension was handed down by FIFA, I believe, 4 hours before lineups were to be submitted for that Bolivia qualifier.
Wow.
Yep. So,
and by the way, they lost 2-0 to Bolivia.
They did, away to Bolivia, yeah. So Messi suspended for that game. I believe they have since appealed, or they have sent in like a letter of petition of protest with Messi saying that he wasn't cursing at the referee. Yes, he was. He said he was cursing at the air, but he was definitely cursing at the...
What had the air done?
Yeah, that's what Alexi Lala said. It's like even the air has feelings. So it seems, I mean, you know, like it or not, think it's wrong, think it's right. It does seem like that suspension is going to be upheld. It seems like he's going to miss a further 3 games so he was suspended for 4 games with 5 games to go in qualification.
Wow. Okay, so the first game was obviously the Bolivia game, which they lost. They are, if I understand correctly, they are in 5th place right now.
5th place, which is the playoff
spot. So not looking great for Argentina. And then, so Messi is missing, I believe, a game away to Uruguay.
Yep.
And then games against Venezuela and, I can't remember the third game.
Home to Peru and Venezuela. And then the final game with which he will return for is away to Ecuador, who are currently 6th in CONMEBOL standings.
Argentina should still make it, though, right?
They should, and really...
Because they have more players than Leo Messi.
Yeah, but then there was a 5-minute montage of Argentinian players just missing chances against Bolivia, pointing to maybe you do need Lionel Messi there.
But isn't that about the altitude at La Paz?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It is, right? A lot of teams go to Bolivia and lose. I remember Diego Maradona managed Argentina team, went to Bolivia and lost. Because it's really hard to go up there and try and win.
Yeah, and then the other thing to point out here is that, yes, Argentina are in 5th, but... the way the standings are right now, Brazil already qualified far, far ahead. Second place, Colombia, 24 points. Uruguay, 23. Chile, 23. Argentina, 22. So it's 2 points between second place and 5th place. Yeah. And then Ecuador in 6th, as I said, on 20 points.
This may just be a moment in time that feels worse because of the Messi thing, and maybe it'll all be fine.
If you had to choose, if you were an Argentinian fan or a Dutch fan, you would rather be an Argentinian fan right now.
Yes. Agree.
Which is kind of a sad thing to say, given tournaments of the past.
Other quick news I saw, Joseph Martinez injured, quad muscle out for 4 to 6 weeks. That is bad news if you're Atlanta, because they play, Seattle this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. Seamus Coleman, I heard he got his leg broken. I could not watch it. I don't like to watch injury videos. We have no analysis of that because I cannot watch it.
The only thing
I would rather watch the It trailer again than...
Yeah. I was going to show it to my wife last night, and I was like, oh, you're going to bed. You do not need to watch a crazy, scary clown. That trailer is frightening. I did want to say, I can't remember who it was for Ireland who took care of him. Did you see this story? It was pretty cool.
Pregnancy breathing.
Was it Liam Brady? I can't remember who it was, but it was somebody on the team.
Liam Brady retired a long time ago.
Good point. Thank you. I forget who it was. Robbie Brady? No. Whoever it was, basically, I guess, used Lamaze breathing or pregnancy breathing to help calm him down because I think he was, freaking out a little bit, having a severe leg break and was in a lot of pain.
All right. So we hope Seamus Coleman gets healthy as soon as possible.
And I have seen, and again, I could be totally wrong, so I apologize, but quickly, I believe whoever it was, do you remember who it was who broke the leg?
No.
Playing for Northern Ireland? No, Wales. Excuse me. Playing for Wales. I think that is the same length of suspension, or it's shorter than what Lionel Messi got, which is why I think a lot of people are very frustrated by that decision from FIFA.
Other injury news, Sebastian Lletget, that injury against Honduras not long after scoring the goal. He's going to have surgery. Yep. 4 to 6 months.
Yep.
That's most of the season. So that is bad news for LA Galaxy, for Sebastian Lletget, for the US men's national team.
That's the key part. I would say it's bad news for LA, certainly, but if you look at where he was, he was starting a World Cup qualifier for the United States. Now, admittedly, there were injuries and suspensions, but still, there was a decent chance that he was either going to figure in those June qualifiers or at the very least make that Gold Cup roster, continue to raise his stock a little bit. 4 to 6 months knocks him out, probably knocks him out of that Gold Cup, or definitely knocks him out of the Gold Cup, knocks him out of a lot of games that he could continue to get in there. So it's probably going to be difficult for him
to make the
World
Cup squad. Yeah, I agree with that.
Which is pretty disappointing because he looked lively in those 15
minutes.
He
certainly did. Final piece of news I have is kind of interesting, speaking of Gold Cup. Haiti won the first leg of the playoff against Nicaragua 2-0.
Yep.
Lost the second leg 3-0. So no Derek Etienne Jr., TSS Scouting Network fave.
I'm sad by this.
At the Gold Cup. There will be Nicaragua in the United States' group at the Gold Cup. So our group is now Martinique, Panama, and Nicaragua.
Yep.
Central American-tastic.
Plus Martinique.
Sorry, plus Martinique. But
yeah. Central America, Windward Islands-tastic. Yep.
The only other story that got my eye was the video assistant review.
The future is now.
Yeah.
The future is now.
Okay, tell us about that, Tyler.
So the friendly between France and Spain, played in France, that's important, could have finished 1-1 if the calls on the field had stood, but they were trialing video assistant replay here, and it ended with France losing to Spain 2-0. So Antoine Griezmann had scored a goal.
Yep.
That was called back correctly because he was fractionally offside, but still offside.
And he definitely was, right? When you see the replay, he was just offside. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then Gerard Deulofeu scored a goal, which was initially ruled out for being offside, and in fact, he was deemed to be onside. Both of those decisions, essentially, the play happens, the center referee stops for a second, holds his hand to his ear for a while. Imagine Christina Aguilera without all like the up and down vocalizations. He's got that going on. He stands there kind of like, and you hear him talking back and forth. And I feel like what he was saying was, "You sure? You sure? You sure?"
He was double checking. Right?
Yeah. And then it takes about 30 to 45 seconds, and then the decisions are made. My
understanding is there's someone somewhere else watching the replay on a monitor and relaying to the referee what they're seeing.
I think it's the fifth official. I think the fourth official continues to do the usual job of the fourth official, and then there's either one or two additional officials doing
FIFA
that replay.
job creation.
Yeah, nice. And to their credit, the French fans didn't really get that upset. The French players didn't really react that strongly. I know some people were kind of upset that it kills the game a little bit, and I don't think it does. I think it took 30 to 45 seconds. You got the decisions right. To his credit, Didier Deschamps, the French manager, when asked about it, and I think people were, again, looking for kind of stories about, like, aren't you upset that you could have drawn instead you lost? And he was like, no, like, it's the future. They got the calls right, and today it didn't go well for us, but it will benefit us in the long term as it will benefit the game.
Oh, so he's a believer in the it all evens out philosophy.
Well, I think especially when it comes to a friendly that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes that they have a goal like incorrectly ruled out, and then they get it back in a Euro or World Cup game, that's when it will matter. And that's going to be
only if you believe that there's a balance in the universe that has to be evened out, right?
Yeah.
It could just be that they just never get this back.
I'm a Jedi. I believe in balance in the Force. Although I think saying you're a Jedi means you're not a Jedi. I forget how it works. But I do like the idea of the moment that video assistant replay becomes a reality in a major, like a World Cup or a Euro. Because in this game, it was sort of like the like the friendlies, it's just friendlies. And so Griezmann scores that goal, but then it's ruled off, but scores that goal and kind of does this like his little celebration. Everybody kind of like gently hugs, and it's like, whatever. The goal's ruled off, and they're like, oh, okay, we'll continue on. It's not a whole big thing. There's not like a lot of protest. But in a World Cup, like imagine a knockout round when the goal's given, and then you see the referee go to his ear, and everybody stops. And you can just imagine both sides, the entire stadium, just silently staring at him like, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
But that's excitement, right? That's drama,
that's
tension. That's
good. What I'm excited about.
I think, That's going to be the symbol, isn't it, as well? When you see a referee sort of push the earbud farther into his ear, you'll know that something is being communicated.
And this is a complete conspiracy theory
I'm
going to throw out there. It makes me wonder if this is part of the reason why we've started to see, this season in particular, the kind of very public crackdown, or at least the publicly talked about crackdown on dissent surrounding the referee, talking to the referee, because everybody kind of left him alone in this game. But you can imagine in a high pressure game that he's going to have 15 players in his ear screaming, no, it was, no, it wasn't. And I bet that this is the beginning of that sort of like, if he's got his hand in his ear, you leave him alone or it's an automatic yellow card.
Yeah.
And they have the video assistant replay to tell you who was complaining in his ear, and he will hand out every single card to those players. Because that will have to be the case. It will have to be that 30 seconds of concentration where he can communicate effectively and not have someone like having one finger in the ear and then the other ear having a player screaming.
Noise-cancelling headphones.
There we go. Yeah, that could be it. Yep.
All right, any more stories, Tyler, before we move on?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, I was I checked up on African qualifying, but that did not happen.
Really?
No.
No fixtures? Okay.
I think there were some friendlies being played for a lot of the teams, but overall, it's still things are as they were. Okay. 2 games played, 4 games to go for every single team. Those games being played, I think, between August and November in 2017.
Okay. How about over in Asia? Was it you I was talking to that said if the US actually finishes in the playoff spot right now,
it's kind of frightening.
Who would we play off against?
So the way it works, you have 2 different, I'm going to say conferences, but 2 tables. The top 2 in each one automatically advance, and then the third place team in each plays against each other. Right now, that's Uzbekistan versus Australia. And then if it's Australia, then it would be the United States playing Australia in that home and away playoff series.
Wow. That would be, again, exciting, scary, because that's a team we could very comfortably lose to.
Yeah, I mean, really, I have no idea. Uzbekistan could be as well. I don't know how hostile that would be to fly all the way to Uzbekistan for a World Cup qualifier.
I couldn't name you an Uzbekistan player, but I mean, if they're third in a group in Asia, they've got to be pretty good.
Yeah, nor could I. And then the other playoff, just to wrap it all up, would be that 5th place spot in Common Bowl, currently occupied by Argentina. We'll play whatever team comes out of Oceania who got that half spot, which will be New Zealand.
Not officially yet, but I also agree
it'll be New Zealand. Yeah. New Zealand or Tahiti, basically.
All right, Taylor, you're going to leave pretty soon, right? But I'm going to set up the Penny Lane quiz, which is a soccer trivia night at Penny Lane. We're really happy that people came and we were able to do 60 questions in total. Yep. There'll be a little sampling of the questions and answers at the end of today's show. So if you think you know your soccer, stick around to the end of the show to hear some trivia. But first, we should let you know today's show is sponsored by Fucci. Fucci, makers of the engineered soccer rebounder. You play the ball against it, the ball comes back, you land it in the court, your opponent does the same until one of you misses. Loser hangs their head in shame.
That's the best summary I think I've heard of Fucci overall. Well done, my friend.
Loser hangs their head in shame.
Yeah. Or falls to the ground in sadness. I think I did that last time we played.
Especially if you've extra stretched hard to get there, or you've sprinted and jumped at a ball to try and make it and get it back to the net.
See, actually, I disagree. I think in those situations, you've worked super hard. That means that it's probably an amazing shot by you that I'm trying to react to.
Yeah, this sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does. The worst, though, is when you've got just the gimme and you have, just like in soccer, when that ball comes in, that cross comes in, and you're like, oh, I'm unmarked, goalie's out of position. Yep. This should obviously be a goal. Only an idiot would miss this goal. I would be terrible if I missed this goal. Oh, I'm going to miss this goal. You have too much time. And there'll be those moments when you give me that layup, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to volley this so hard, and then I hit it and it goes way out of bounds, or I hit it under the net, or I hit it over the net. You can see all of those on the various YouTube videos we have.
Oh, yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes
please do. Thank you.
To our Fucci videos. Is that what it sounds like in your head when there's an easy shot coming?
Oh, no, it's just screaming and sadness. That's all. That's all.
Also, it's probably playing Fucci. It's probably best to just sometimes take the easy shot. Don't try and be too fancy.
Oh, that is very important. Yes,
it's really a game of just get it on the net, get it on frame, get it on frame.
Very good advice from young Mr. Grove.
Okay, one of our sponsored Fucci segment is the bounce back. So I thought for this it would be good to do, or you thought it would be good to do, which international team needs to bounce back? Which international team needs a big rebound?
Yep.
Who's your nomination?
I think I would have gone with either Argentina or the Netherlands, but since we spent so much time talking about them, I'm going to go with one I mentioned briefly. It'd be Wales, who are currently third in Group D behind Serbia and the Republic of Ireland.
Interesting.
7 points. Both Serbia and Republic of Ireland each have 11. So Wales aren't that far out, but still, for a team that did what they did in the Euros, that looked as good as they did, that have Gareth Bale and so many other proven veteran players, you would expect them to be performing at a higher level than they currently are.
Interesting.
So maybe they buy a couple Fuccis, they get them out there on the training ground, they have a little bit of fun, they get that competition up, then they're ready to go for the remaining World Cup qualifiers.
Gareth Bale would be good at it, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Joe Allen would be the best, though.
I think Joe Ledley would be the best because he just wouldn't get out of people's way. That is a key component, right? If you really want to be a jerk, you can kind of hit the ball and then stand there, and the player has to move around you. Joe Ledley would not only not move, but also probably throw up some elbows.
And then celebratory dance when he wins every point.
Of course.
For the win every time.
Yep.
Okay, so I was going to go whichever Argentina or Netherlands you didn't go.
I'll leave it to you to pick.
You've given me a Neymar-type shimmy there that I've bought. So I won't say Netherlands or Argentina either. I will say two teams we haven't mentioned. Russia, hosting the 2018 World Cup, and Qatar, hosting the 2022 World Cup.
They could both use it.
They could, but neither of them in good shape. They're both on track to be not very good World Cup hosts in terms of the team they put out.
I mean, at least Russia will be at the 2018 World Cup. Qatar will almost certainly not, based on current standings.
Yep. I'll guarantee Russia will be at the 2018 World Cup.
Really? You're going to go out on a limb? You sure you're comfortable making that decision?
I am.
It's risky.
So if you would like to buy a Fucci, everyone in Russia, Wales, Qatar, and TSS listeners, you can get the biggest possible discount on a Fucci rebounder by using the Total Soccer Show discount code. Fucci, the good people at Fucci have given us this big discount code because we have worked with them for so long. The discount code is
TSS 2017.
3 letters, 4 numbers.
There we are.
TSS 2017. The website is www.playfucci.com, spelled Futchi.
Quick question, Daryl Grove?
Yes.
Will there be a link in the show notes?
There will also be a link in the show
okay,
notes.
Cool. Great,
Yes.
perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
All right, Taylor, I think it's time for you to leave.
Okay. Just because of that?
Yeah.
All right, that's fair.
Oh, no, you've got to go. I am going to... We haven't selected the piece of the quiz that we're going to put in the show, so I'm going to wave you goodbye. I'm going to select the quiz, and I'm going to set it up for listeners to listen to.
It's the first time you've ever waved goodbye to me in the middle of a podcast.
Yep.
I'm not sure how I feel about it.
You earned it, buddy.
That's fair.
So we're saying we're going to take Friday off,
Yes.
right? We have had a 12-day week, I think,
Yeah.
so far. So with no show on Friday. This one's going to be nice and info-packed, so this should last you 2 days, we hope.
I often wonder what people in this building think of our work schedule, because routinely we will come in at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I can see that look, like if they have their office door open, of sort of like, oh, you guys, I wish I had your schedule. And it's like, well, we're going to be out of here at 1 in the morning, so no, you don't.
Games to watch this weekend. We're going to watch maybe Atlanta, Seattle. I think it's Seattle, Atlanta, actually.
Yep.
Maybe no Morris, no Martinez, but still worth watching.
Yep.
There's the River Derby in Germany. It's Schalke and Dortmund. We'll
Yep.
see Christian Pulisic maybe in action against Schalke in the big derby. We might see Weston McKennie for Schalke. He joined the first team for one of those sort of friendlies recently. Looked really, really good. You can see the tweet in our timeline of Weston McKennie looking great for Schalke.
Worth noting, I think he started that game. Nick Tattague, also an American from Richmond, or Midlothian, Virginia, he subbed in. So 2 Americans made that an appearance in that friendly, but Weston McKennie seems like the one who is in pole position.
And that's the future of the River Derby, is going to be Americans everywhere.
Oof,
it's kind of exciting, right? Maybe 2 years from now? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Other games the Merseyside Derby is also happening.
It's kind of important.
There is all sorts happening this weekend.
PSG Monaco.
PSG Monaco.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what we can do. We can't commit to all these games. We're going to come in on Monday and we're going to just see like what the best bit of action, the best goals, whatever has happened in all those games across the world. We'll pick our favourites and we'll do a show about it.
And I have to mention Benfica Porto as well. Final one. Maybe that one makes it in there too.
What are the chances that we end up reviewing that game?
Hey, could be a good one. Could be a good one.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to come visit me in the office today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, goodbye to Taylor, but stick around for the trivia show. Hey guys, welcome back. It's just Daryl here in studio, but I wasn't alone last Thursday. Taylor and I hosted Soccer Trivia Night at Penny Lane Pub here in Richmond, Virginia, sponsored by Guinness, and a good time was had by all. What you're about to hear is the second round of the night. It's a general knowledge round. It's Taylor asking 10 general knowledge soccer trivia questions. So maybe take out a pen and paper or just make a mental note of the questions you hear, see how many you get right. Then we'll take a very short break and I'll play the audio of Taylor giving the answers. So once again, here are 10 questions from Soccer Trivia Night in Richmond, Virginia, sponsored by Guinness. Over to Taylor.
Everybody have an answer sheet? Everybody got your team name on it? We're in round 2.
I love those
I'm going to deliver all of my questions from right here. I hope that works for you. Don't touch, please. All right, here. Okay, round 2, still general trivia. First question. Former Richmond kicker Richie Williams helped DC United win the first ever MLS Cup, defeating their opponents 3-2. You'll notice I said opponents because I didn't tell you their name, because that's what I want to know. Who did DC United beat in that first MLS Cup?
There's only 9 choices.
Who did DC United beat in the first ever MLS Cup? Or yes, who did MLS beat in the first ever? There it is. Gotcha.
They used to like switch people, teams around.
Number 2.
Colorado won as the Eastern champion.
Number 2. Until Leicester City's title last year, only 5 clubs had ever won the English Premier League. They would be Manchester United, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, and what other club?
You know, right? Split it up.
They won it a grand spanking total of 1 time.
Total outlier. They were the transfer at that point.
Number 3.
They got him in
This is your opportunity to randomly guess if you don't know. Former U.S. national team coach Bora Milutinovic is the only manager to take 5 different teams to the World Cup. How many national teams did he manage in total? In his 32-year career, took 5 to the World Cup, but how many did he manage total? He managed 1 twice, that doesn't count. That's just 1.
What did you say? What was it?
He managed 1 national team twice, so that doesn't count. Just, how many now? We good to go? Question number 4. Only 2 players have ever been red carded in different World Cups. One was Cameroon's Rigobert Song, who got his first red card in 1994, and his second in 1998. Who is the other player? Use your heads, people.
Can you repeat the question?
Only 2 players have ever been red carded in multiple World Cups. One of them would be Cameroon's Rigobert Song. Who's that other player?
Really dirty.
All right. Number 5. And even though it's the first round, for me at least, I think this might be my favorite thing I learned doing this. Scottish Premier League clubs Dundee United FC and Dundee FC have the closest home grounds in all of Britain. According to Google Maps, how long would it take to walk from one stadium to the other? Closest home grounds in all of Britain. How long does it take to walk from one to the other?
I don't know.
Oh, and as a clarification, they do not play at the same stadium. It is 2 different facilities. I'm not that much of a jerk. Number 6. Question the 6th. This World Cup winner famously took off her shirt to celebrate victory in the 1999 World Cup final against China. This World Cup winner famously took off her shirt to celebrate victory in the 1999 final against China. She did. Apparently not.
Everyone knows that.
All right, number 7. One that I know is near and dear to everyone's hearts. What club has won the Ukrainian Premier League the most times since the league began in 1991?
Ukrainian? Ooh,
The Ukrainian Premier League.
really tough.
I know 2 or 3 teams. That's good to 1 and 2 teams.
We'll be lenient with Spain.
Yeah.
Or Czech.
He's going to resemble the team.
You knew this one, right?
Shakhtar is like one of the titles.
Yeah, this is the part where I admit that I think Daryl got like 8 out of 10 of my questions, and I got like 4 out of 10 of Daryl's questions. So that's it. Well, okay. See, I appreciate it. There we go. Number 8. According to Wikipedia, the gospel of all knowledge, as of the 2016-2017 season, how many teams based in London play in England's top 4 leagues? Not all their leagues.
We need time.
I'll give you time. So the top 4 leagues: Premier League, Championship, League 1, League 2.
Okay, well, I need
How many total clubs from London play in those 4 divisions? Take your time. It won't help, but take your time.
Late.
Taylor,
Yo,
can we get a number? How many it is?
what?
Wait, listen to teams, right?
Fewer than 50. Is that helpful? It wasn't meant to be. All right, number 9. Number 9. We'll give you some more time at the end of the round.
Specifically built to take the
The 2002 film, Bend It Like Beckham, familiarized audiences, sort of, with actress Parminder Nagra, who played the lead role in the film. Which actress played her best friend in that movie? All right. Dan, you got that one? Dan's got that one. So, it's, all right, the 2002 film Bend It Like Beckham familiarized audiences with the lead actress who played her best friend in that film. Dan knows it. Dan knows it.
He couldn't type it.
All right, final question of the round. Question number 10. and it's slightly more confusing than you think. How many national teams, knowing that you can really only play for like one or two, how many national teams did Real Madrid legend Alfredo Di Stefano play for? How many national teams did Alfredo Di Stefano play for?
Okay, did you get all that? Are you ready for the answers? I hope so, because here they come.
Quickly, before we move on to round 3, your answers for round 2. Who did DC United beat in the first? Almost gave it a thing away. The first MLS Cup. That would be the LA Galaxy. The only other Premier League team to win the Premier League would be Blackburn Rovers. Boris Milutinovic managed 8 national teams. Mexico, Costa Rica, USA, Nigeria, China, Honduras, Jamaica, and Iraq. Zinedine Zidane sent off in 2 different World Cups. To walk from one stadium to the other, it takes 4 minutes. Randy Chastain whipped off her shirt to celebrate. Dynamo Kiev have won the most titles. There are 13 clubs from London. 13 from London.
Plus or minus?
13 from London. Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley is the actress from Like that goes. And Alfredo Di Stefano played for Argentina, Colombia, Spain. Germany. 3 the German way. The German way. Not 3.
So there you go. That was a brief excerpt, one round of trivia from Soccer Trivia Night at Penny Lane Pub here in Richmond, Virginia. Thank you to everybody who was there. We really did have a good time. And a big thank you to Guinness for sponsoring the event. We are going to do it again. It is tentatively scheduled for April 27th, Thursday, April 27th, 7:30 to 9:30 here in Richmond. But that is all from us for today. We are taking Friday off. We're going to watch some soccer over the weekend and we'll be back on Monday to talk about it. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.